Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It's time to be here with Jael again for our gender and astrology talk. All right, Jael, what do you got for us?
We had a fun time last time looking at this very poorly drawn chart that I made. And
I love
I
poorly
thought
drawn
we
charts.
would, right? Well, good, because I have more. I definitely want to turn these into beautiful things at some point, but I haven't had the capacity for that quite yet. But I thought we might now sort of explore how the planets combine with the elements and the modes. Um, and the planets, modes, elements to create the signs and describe the quality of the genders of each sign. So here's my first little chart, which I don't know, is it blurry for you?
Right
Can you
there,
see
it's
if it's
pretty
blurred?
okay, but yeah, it does kind of blur. Okay, so it says masculine, fire, cardinal, femme, water, fixed, air, earth, or
So yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about that before, but anyways, hopefully it's not blurring it. It doesn't seem like it is, but I don't know why it blurred the chart last time.
yeah.
So, um, but yes,
We don't
anyways,
try to
so
be perfection on this channel.
hey,
We don't even believe in perfection here. So,
yeah, that's really healthy for me. So basically, this is the elements, the modes, and the signs on in a just a quick little quadrant of masculine on this side, feminine on this side, and then like most intense and least intense. So in the most masculine corner, we have fire is the most masculine element, and air is less intense but still masculine. Water is the most feminine, and earth is the feminine but lesser strength. And then for modes, I mean, it's not exactly that the modes technically have gender, but again, like, gender is complex, right? And we attribute certain qualities to them, and it helps to um, have these things be concrete and then have the blending be where the complexity is. So cardinal, it's initiating. So that's more of the masculine mode. And then fixed, it is the feminine mode. And then the mutable, I just sort of wrote it across the bottom because it rules a third of the zodiac, like it's sort of like one third for each, right? It rules a third of the zodiac because it's about either balancing or blending. Um, and then for planets, we'll work backwards. Again, we have our Jupiter and Mercury ruling the bigender signs. So they're down here. And then the most up here, we have Mars and Sun as being masculine, and then, Moon and Venus as being feminine.
can I say something
Clear?
about this?
Yeah, please.
So there's this concept in ancient astrology called onophoric and cataphoric, or carried upwards and carried downwards. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I love it already.
Okay, so fire and air signs are said to be carried upwards, and water and earth are said to be carried downwards. So if you think about masculinity, it's kind of upward, like it's in your face, it's yang. They would say that the blood
Right.
typology of fire and air signs, the blood is actually pushed upwards. Like if a fire person's sitting there, their blood kind of goes like this, whereas the carried downward signs are the blood goes in and down, so it would be like this. So I think that seems so apt for masculine and feminine, whereas masculine people are more like yang, in your face, like carried upwards towards you and at you, whereas feminine energy is more inward and down and kind of submissive and at least culturally speaking. So I think that's just an interesting other layer to it.
Yeah, I love that. It's perfect. Um, so this is also written in pencil, so it's not really readable, but I thought we could go through sort of the makeup of signs in terms of the other kind of
Can you
point
stop
of
and start
this
your
is
video?
also
Because
to
Because you're frozen. Okay, I was now you're moving.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. I wonder if my internet is stupid. Um, the sort of the point of establishing this is also to talk about the weight. So weighting in astrology, as you know, is sort of when you assign numerical value to thing to so you can kind of do a math philosophy of math. No, do okay. Sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking, but hashtag Mercury retrograde. So, anyways, this is what we're looking at the most in the last or whatever. So, then when we move into the signs, we're gonna have Aries is
Well, we lost Jael. Let's see, what do I have to say about astrology and gender?
oh no.
Oh,
Okay. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
wow, this makes for an exciting episode.
I know, God. Sometimes it's like
What
kind of
gender what gender disappears and reappears?
whatever mine is, right? Right. Surprise. Okay. Maybe that'll make it a little bit better. Let's find out. So Aries is a sign that is in fire, the fire element, which is the most masculine, and then it's in the mode that is cardinal, which is also masculine, and then its ruler is Mars, which is the most masculine of the planets. So it's um, the most masculine of all of the signs. And then after that, interestingly, Taurus is an earth sign, which is not the most feminine of the elements. So it'd be like it's the medium. Um, and then its mode is fixed, which is sort of the feminine. So that's one more plus for feminine. And then it has Venus as the ruler, which is the most feminine. But it's interesting that that adds up to basically being mostly feminine, but not 100% masculine the way that Aries is. And Aries is the only sign that is 100% in its strength and gender, which I think is a really interesting commentary as well about how masculinity and femininity works, because masculinity is sort of about being this like self-contained individual, whereas femininity inherently has a relational nature to it. So it's like even the most feminine is only 80% feminine because it's like a little bit open to it's receptive,
Hmm,
right?
wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
So Aries
Um,
is the most doodly of all the signs. But because it's like poking at you by being cardinal and then poking at you by being just masculine or fire. Yeah, so it's like Aries starts shit. It's like
exactly.
cardinal and it's fire. It's just all like rawr, let's get this
Right.
party started. All right. Well, I
Let's
like
get
that.
it. Yeah, exactly.
I recently met an
Um,
who,
so
well, anyway, I won't go on
oh
that.
yeah, no, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just realized I didn't want
Yeah.
it to last for me. So, okay,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
so
Um,
what's the most feminine of all signs?
so the most, I mean, Taurus is the most feminine. It just isn't 100% feminine the way that Aries is 100% masculine due to its um receptivity, the inherent receptivity nature of femininity just to begin with. And then the sort of most, well, okay, so let's see. Sorry, I just have this chart as them in order. So after that, we have Gemini, which is a Mercury ruled sign, and it's in a element that is masculine, but not the most masculine. And it's in a mode which is mutable, which is a blend or a balance of the two. and then its ruler Mercury is also in the neutral bigender category. So it's like bigender, and a little bit masculine.
Interesting.
So
I
that's
agree with that. I agree with that.
yeah,
It's like cerebral, masculine, ambiguous, androgynous is Gemini.
exactly right. Which, sorry, I didn't say that before. Which translates to an air element, a mutable mode, and Mercury ruler. That's the three of those. And then we move on to Cancer, which is a water sign. So it's the most feminine in element. And it's also cardinal. So that's actually masculine, although in the lesser category. And then it's ruled by the moon, which is the most feminine uh, on the planetary scale. So there you get this sort of feminine quality that has a little bit of a initiating, or you could say masculine mode. So like kind of like giving birth or like being a mother, like there's a obviously being a mother is like pretty archetypically feminine, but it also involves creation and putting something out into the world, which are masculine qualities.
Interesting. Wow, I never thought about that, but creation of the baby is a kind of yang act. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna make a human, you know. That's actually no, that's no, not for if you're milk toast, I don't think you would make a baby, honestly.
Right, right, exactly, which is why in some ways the in well, we'll move on to that in a little bit. I have a thing there too, but there's something interesting about Aries and Taurus versus Cancer and Leo, which is that Aries and Taurus are so much more individual and self-contained as energies, whereas Cancer and Leo, which is also why they correspond to like mother and father, are like inherently relational kind of identities, and they're also considered sort of on the age range. Mars, Venus, and Mercury are the youngest, and um, Sun and Moon are like mature, middle, or not, maybe not middle age, but like fully grown adults,
Hmm.
people who are doing their gender in ways that people do gender at that age, which tends to be relational,
Hmm.
at least archetypically speaking. So okay, right. So then Leo is weighted basically the exact same way as Cancer, except for flipped. So it has the most masculine element being fire, and then it has that fixed quality. So it's like the lesser of the strength and, or sorry, it has the sort of feminine mode, and then it's ruled by the sun, which is in the like male category. So they sort of end up adding up similarly, but just on the opposite ends.
Hmm. Wow, interesting. So Leo is
Yeah.
less masculine than Aries. Um, so the fixed makes it less masculine. So fixed is less masculine than cardinal.
Yes.
Okay, okay, that makes some sense because cardinal, we think of, I guess, what I'm thinking here is that culturally we say if you start something, that's a masculine quality. Like if you
Right.
initiate, like being the initiator in sex or in
Mm-hmm.
dating would be the masculine role. So that makes sense.
Right. And like fixed signs are enduring and like patient and have that like staying power quality, which is archetypically feminine.
Yeah, okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then we have Virgo, which is a earth sign, so that's on the lesser strength of the feminine element, and then it is also a mutable in mode, which gives it that bigender neutral vibe, and then it's also ruled by a bigender neutral planet being Mercury. So
Okay.
again, we have like Gemini and Virgo being related in that they're sort of similarly um neutral. But Virgo is the slightly feminine neutral, and Gemini is the slightly masculine neutral.
Oh, interesting. So you're giving mutable to neutral, not any gender.
Yes, because it's inherently two genders, but there's in that. I mean, we're gonna get to that. I have a whole scale about extremity and some other things. But
I see where you had to start with the binary, but you're just going, your charts are just going to be insane.
yeah,
Well, okay,
right.
so okay, that is interesting. So I never thought about that. Okay, but like Virgo's the feminine neutral and Gemini's masculine neutral. I actually so agree with that because Gemini is kind of in your face, like talking at you, like blah 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 blah, and Virgo's kind of sitting there humbly listening to you, but responding and things like that. So fascinating. Yeah, Virgo is kind of a feminine sign. It's like feminine Earth, but it is kind of neutral. Yeah. Okay. 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 Do you think Virgos are feminine?
I mean,
Because it's called a feminine sign, isn't it?
yes, yeah. I mean, it's considered a feminine on
But
the
I like
on
what you're
the
saying
in
that it's
the.
more neutral.
Well, I think again that has to do with its relationality, and it's on when we get to the scale sort of extremity. It's on the far end, away from the like dynamic.
Wait, say that again? You were cutting out. Say that again. It's on the extreme what?
Okay, there we go. It's on the extreme end on the with like maybe Scorpio being on the opposite end in terms of its extreme in its neutrality, I guess, if that makes sense. And the thing about Virgo is like the archetype of the Virgin in the ancient world, and why Virgo is named that is about it's a female person who is sovereign and is not going has no is not going to like become the property of a man or become even a mother. It's sort of like it's a feminine essence that's sort of operating in the world in a masculine way in terms of its sovereignty and individuality.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm thinking of all the Virgos I know right now, and I guess I don't think of them as feminine people. They're kind of practical. If there's a gender called practical, that would be it.
Right. Well, it's feminine in the archetypical way, not in the Barbie way,
Yeah.
in that Virgo like takes things in and sorts them out and analyzes and so
Mm.
it's sort of it's only a little bit feminine. Like it's a little tiny bit feminine, but it's not super feminine. Like
Yeah, no, I
it's
don't think.
mostly kind of neutral. It's not super concerned with gender, I guess.
Is there a gender called mechanical? I think that
Hmm,
Virgos are the gender of being a robot mechanic. No,
yeah,
no, but they are kind of
maybe.
mechanical
Okay.
sometimes.
Yeah, no, yeah, I would say that's true.
Yeah.
Because it's the like logic is very. I mean, I suppose logic is also very associated with Gemini too. Like it's kind of a just Mercury type vibe.
Yeah.
But Virgos are definitely logical and like feel comfortable operating inside of logic and sort of relying on the structure of logic to make sense of things.
Yeah, I like what you're saying that Virgo's not super concerned with gender. I mean, you could almost say it's non-gendered or doesn't consider gender in its expression. It's just kind of non-gendered.
Right. Right.
Whereas like Gemini might be more aggressively neutral gendered or like a cerebral gender.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then we're moving on to Libra, which is an air sign. So it's masculine, but not the most masculine. And it's cardinal. So it's also has that, initiating masculine energy. But it's ruled by Venus, which is the most feminine sign. So in Libra and then next in Scorpio, we're about to look at the two most dynamic gendered signs, the most complex genders, because they have the largest extremity in masculine and feminine qualities.
Wow. Wow, this is a really cool analysis because you're right. Libra is masculine and it's air, but it's also ruled by Venus. That is fascinating. The professor
Right.
strikes again.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's like this will surprise no one, I feel like, but it's like when you think of Libra, a lot of times you think about like artists, but it's sort of like a fundamentally masculine being that expresses themselves in the realm of femininity, which is like beauty and art and like, and then again with the combination, there's another like creation, there's creativity to that too,
Mm.
which I think is really interesting. Also, again, when we move to Scorpio, there's another creation element there because like Scorpio literally rules like sex.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
So wait, so with Libra, it would be like they start stuff too, but they start art stuff. Like they'll start an art project with you, whereas
Yeah,
Aries might start a fight because it's, that, but
right. Yeah, it starts feminine things.
yeah, totally. It's interesting. Interesting. Okay, like yeah, an art project is more of a sweet engagement, but it is an engagement and it does require energy. So I see. So Libra, fascinating. Okay, okay. So it's kind of masculine in that it's cardinal and air. So it's starting stuff cerebrally, but what it's starting is Venusian things. Okay, this is mind blowing. It's really
Yeah,
rare that someone blows my mind. I've been at this for 25 years.
I trust me, I am deeply flattered by that. Oh my, for real. Okay, so then in Scorpio, we have it's a water sign, which is the most feminine of the elements, and then it's fixed, which is also feminine, but it's ruled by Mars. So it's the same
Oh,
situation but flipped.
wow.
So it's a fundamentally feminine essence. Oh my gosh. It's a fundamentally feminine essence that then um, is sort of expressing itself in a masculine way.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I just recently made a video on Scorpio and I was talking about how they're the emotional warriors of the zodiac because they get all tense emotionally or they fixate on things emotionally, but they are super feminine in that they're emotionally driven, right? Like you're not supposed to, like
Exactly. Exactly.
in masculinity, you don't let your emotions get the best of you. You would, so fascinating.
Stoicism.
So do you think Scorpio, because of the Mars, do you think it is masculine? Like, I'm thinking of the Scorpios I know, like, are they masculine? They're definitely martial, if that
Well, I
makes
think definitely. I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting in Scorpio is that like it can produce like the most of whatever the person is. Like it can be like the most sexy straight lady or the most like bravado like sexiness oriented like man, but also like a lot of trans people have like heavy Scorpio signatures.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's interesting too. Like it's a really complex and dynamic gender, because it has extremes, and it has extreme masculine and extreme feminine mixed together. And then, obviously look at other things about sort of looking at how that ends up playing out. But yeah, it's like very deep, it's emotional, it's like inward focused and like that kind of thing, which would all be like feminine, and yet it's being expressed about Martian things, and also just like in that manner. So I don't know,
Makes me
pretty
think of like
interesting.
a tough chick. Like I'm very Scorpio, and it's
Yes,
like a tough chick, but
yes,
it's still a chick. You know what I mean? It's just like there's, when you sit next to a biker babe, you can feel the yin just juice. I mean, That's a weird way to say it, but
Right.
like you can feel the energy coming off of them. That's like this yin energy, but
Yeah.
they're a little scary too, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. My favorite. Um, you
I do
know?
think a lot of trans people have Scorpio because I always think of Scorpio as living in some ways in the reproductive organs, and so sometimes Scorpios can obsess about like their sex organs in some ways, even straight Scorpios. But I wonder if there's an attention to detail around the sex organs, like with Scorpios. I mean, that's not a gender question, that's just another thought.
Well, I mean, it can be sort of. I think that like what you're speaking to belies another dynamic involving gender in the zodiac, which is that some signs are really concerned with gender, and other ones are like barely even are like, what's gender? Who even cares about that? Like, I'm in my creative mind, or I'm like, you know, like they're just like, I don't even care about those modes. But that also kind of goes back to this to my original chart where we're looking at how like individual of itself it is versus separate together, which is like it's like two different things are happening but they're balanced, and then on the far end where there's two different things but they're blended together.
Interesting. No, I like what you're
So
saying there. I do think Scorpio is more interested in sex, sexuality, and gender than, let's say, Virgo. For they or
right,
some signs are just not even into sex. Like a Gemini might be more cerebral than sensual, kind of thing.
exactly right, because there's like asexuality is on the spectrum, right? You can be like hypersexual or asexual on the far end. Like there's and this is like hopefully now we're starting to see where my big binary stance is like coming in, because all of those things have to be rigid in their extremity, and it's the layering of them that we're getting the complexity from. So
Yeah, this is great.
because if you didn't have points, then okay. So now we're going to move on to Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, and it's in the like so fire, most masculine of the elements, and then it's mutable, so its mode is in that sort of bigender category, and then it's also ruled Jupiter, which is a masculine slash bigender sign,
Interesting.
right? Yes.
Yeah, a lot of Sagittarius are really bitchy about
So
gender.
I mean, Sages are definitely. I mean, yeah, really all the as far as ascendants go, and again, I hope to do like more extensive real research on this as I go along. So like this is anecdotal what I'm saying, but like from my experience, just with like having looked at a couple dozen charts of people who are trans or gender nonconforming, Sagittarius is definitely up there in terms of ascendant signs of trans people. And there's, I think, a variety of reasons for that, but like it being that sort of Jupiter ruled, yeah, it's a all basically all of the four mutable signs are all sort of by gender ruled, either by Mercury or by Jupiter, and you know
Hmm.
having a bi-gender ascendant is definitely a good start for a trans chart. Although obviously, again, you need a lot more
And
when
maybe the
somebody's just
gender here is
ascendant. But
more expansive, like I include all things. I am all genders. I am everything and
exactly,
anything. The
lots
Scorpios.
of poly people are Sag.
Oh yeah, oh totally, totally. So like maybe the Scorpio's more concerned about, like sexuality and genitals and things like that. But maybe the Sag is more concerned with the freedom to be who you are and, be flippy and
Yes,
expansive.
absolutely. Yeah, totally. Very that. Yeah, gender expansive is a really good way to say that. for sure.
Nice.
And then we're gonna get into Capricorn, and Capricorn is an earth element. So it's feminine, but not the most feminine. And then but it's cardinal in its mode. So it has like a masculine mode. And then it's ruled by Saturn, which is another neutral planet in terms of gender.
Well, I'm so glad you brought this up because whenever I read that Capricorn is feminine, I'm just like, it's so not very feminine. But now the cardinal part really explains why, because they're so leadership oriented and kind of yang in it that they start stuff in business all the time. So that would be kind of a yin starter, you know. But like, oh, I love
Yeah.
this. And the Saturnian element makes it kind of austere, which isn't super feminine
Right.
in what we think of like squishy and feminine, like a Cancer, you know. The
Right.
Capricorn's more like
Yeah.
cool and yin, but also starting stuff.
My favorite way to understand Capricorn is in the crone archetype. So like it's the gender, it's like your 89-year-old grandma who is the matriarch of the entire family. You know what I mean? So femininity is not exactly like the most on the most forefront part, you know, like she's a little I'm done with all that crap. But you know, she's still feminine. You know, she still has a feminine quality, but she has all of this like gravitas and wisdom and like which translates into authority. But that's why that's sort of how you get the feminine authority, right? Like it's of a feminine nature, but it's matured to a point that brings it into authority, and authority is sort of typically thought of as like a masculine thing. So that's kind of where you get that blended vibe going.
Beautiful.
Um, and then again, Aqua or Aquarius is similarly it has a similar sort of makeup going on, but it's flipped. So it's an air sign, and so that means it's like masculine, but not the most masculine, and it's fixed. So that's sort of a feminine mode. And then it's ruled by Saturn also, which is again one of those on the down here on the bigender part of
This
the
is
scale.
so brilliant. Did you make this up?
No,
No.
I
Okay.
mean it's multiple sources. The primary source is the God, I can't even say it. Okay, never mind. I was gonna try to say a Sanskrit word and I can't because I only read it. But it's basically from uh an early it's like a little bit of like Hellenistic stuff mixed with like ancient Jyotish Vedic tradition stuff. But that's sort of like how I learn everything is I'm really like I want to know what the consistent agreements are across many traditions. So like you know that like I've talked about this giant spreadsheet that I have like that's why I have that and that's sort of like how I study things because I want to see that something is verified by looking at how it is agreed upon across many cultures. And sometimes there are disagreements, but if you look into the disagreements, you can understand that they kind of are saying the same thing, but for like maybe cultural or time-based reasons that it's like being interpreted in a different way. But like if you drill down into those sort of like core nuggets, then I kind of feel like everybody actually agrees on the core nuggets. It's more like and that I think makes me a better astrologer to understand what those like core energies are instead of just like repeating what somebody else did with their interpretation of it.
Interesting. So, no, I like that you've studied the ancient stuff and then you're really taking a kind of neo-modern look at it and saying, you know, how does it apply to our gender conversation today? And like, this is great. So, Aquarius, I can see what you're saying. It's kind of feminine in as much as it's not starting stuff. Like Aquarius is, you know,
Right.
it's more, it's fixed on things. It's, you know, dealing with what's already there, but it's air, so it's carried upwards, and it is kind of, yangy that way. Yeah, and the
Yep.
Saturnian element there, what do you think that does? It makes it a little bit more serious, perhaps, than, Gemini, for example, or something like
So if we want to like take the crone archetype of Saturn and apply it to both Capricorn and Aquarius, but see how they're different, it's like because they the when you have the weight come out the same, but it's sort of like Capricorn, like governments and things, because Saturn is warm and like the crone or the like, grandma thing. It's sort of like Capricorn, like the that reforms the animal, and Aquarius is like the individual that the institute. So, or something, Aquarius agenda the action of like sticking up for the world. Aquarius is all about being like, hey, don't beat up.
Well, this is interesting. Jael has now popped off for a second, but I do think that having this really intense approach
Okay.
to the signs is really helpful. Okay, are you back?
Yeah, I missed some of what you're saying because I damn, okay. There we go. Oh my gosh. All right, there we go. All right, but yes, basically I was just saying, I don't know what you heard, but Aquarius is like the stick up for the little guy, and a Capricorn is sort of like the government that or the institution that sort of makes the laws and the things to have things be fair. So they're kind of like doing this very similar thing, but kind of like coming at it from different angles, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Nice. Okay, cool.
And then we got one more, Pisces. We all love
I
Pisces.
can't wait for this
Um,
Pisces moon. I'm gonna be listening like with all ear.
all right, good. Here we go. So Pisces is a water sign, so it's the most feminine of the elements. And then it's in a mutable mode, so that gives it that neutral bigender mode. And then it's in the slightly masculine but also feminine Jupiter rulership. So, but it's like the feminine Jupiter. So it kind of like it works out to being, wait, what's the other one? It's sort of similarly right. It's Pisces is sort of similarly gendered in some ways to Gemini and Virgo, but looking at him like, is it time to move on to this? But it's less, unlike Gemini and Virgo, which are sort of like they're more neutral, and Pisces is more blended than neutral, if that makes any sense. And maybe it will when I show this beauty. Okay. So on this, what we have is the extremes are on the outside, and then the most congruent, I suppose you could say, is in the middle. And with this, we have okay, so like Aries, Taurus, and Sagittarius are kind of like a same for same. Like they don't have a huge gap in between their like masculine and feminine qualities, because they're sort of like feminine with a feminine with a feminine and masculine with a masculine, and then like Sagittarius is like the bigender with the bigender.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then on the far extremes of like we were talking about before, Scorpio and Libra are on the sort of like dynamic end of the extreme. It's and they're very polarized. in their internal gender. Like they have they have a very strong masculine mixed with a very strong feminine. Both of those signs do.
Hmm.
And then on the far end, we have Virgo and Gemini being extreme in the way that they're blended, which creates sort of extreme neutrality, whereas Scorpio and Libra create extreme polarization, or or basically a very dynamic or a very complex gender.
Interesting. Fascinating. Well, just about Pisces, I think
Um,
it might be mutable and kind of expansive like Sagittarius with the Jupiter rulership, um, which I do think Pisces is expansive. It's like we are all one, we are all genders, we are all like, but it is very watery. Like even if I stood next to you, you have a Pisces rising. I know you're a total dude, but like I think I would feel that soft yin thing on your aura. You know, it's like Pisces has a yin
yeah,
kind of aura, you know. Um,
for sure. And I mean, I think I have many feminine qualities, and I'm happy to have them be balanced, which I guess is basically the most Pisces shit that I could say according to this chart. So, um, so there you go. So the sort of the middle ones are connected in that they are balanced. Um, but over here with the Leo, Pisces, and Cancer, they're balanced like we were talking about before. Leo ruled by Sun, Cancer ruled by Moon are balanced in that they have that sort of mature um, kind of gender that is primarily, masculine or feminine, but it's not so individual the way that like Mars ruled um signs are, or like energy can be like, because it's again, I feel like it's almost like about a relationality and a balancing the separate but together, or sorry, yeah, separate but together, like different and coexisting but not blended. So like this is on this end of the scale, we're getting more blended, and over here we're individuated, if that makes sense. And then on the very far end, it's like extremely polarized, and then here it's like different, but they're balanced. Like they're kind of like working together well, whereas like depending on the dignity and other things going on in the chart, house placement, aspects, etc., this be like dynamic, highly dynamic in a way that's like internally conflictual or not, but either way it's gonna be like extreme.
Mhm.
um
So will you
and
share that
then
chart with us on Facebook because
sorry,
it is a little blurry.
yeah,
Okay. Um, and I have a question for
I
you.
have like a filter.
I have a question for you. If a transgender
Yeah, yeah.
person or any person, but I just think one of the things we're highlighting in our show here is that we're celebrating gender and the complexity of it. We're not shying it down to like one or the other. We're like looking at all complexities. So if a transgender person or a complex gender person wanted to meet with you for an astrology reading, would you be willing to go through all the genders of their chart with them? Is that something you do?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think that's, I guess it would really depend on what, if somebody's coming to me for a specific question that may or may not come up. But typically, if we're talking about just an assessment of the energy system, then definitely. And this is also why I'm going through all of the detail of sorting out and showing what the mechanics are here, because I think people ask the question of astrology, am I or is someone gay or not, but like you can be gay, straight, or anywhere on this. The you trans because you're all the way over here and you just like don't get gender related to gender and you want off the gender ride, or are you trans because you were assigned um one gender at birth, but you identify in a really like extreme way that's like opposites.
Mhm. Well, I think it would be really cool
But
for a teenager who's discovering their gender pathway to be able to talk to you. And you could say, okay, you're a Scorpio, which is this kind of nuanced gender, with a Gemini rising, which is this kind of nuanced gender, with a Cancer moon. You know, it's like I think walking a person through their gender journey that the moon takes them around once a month, it's like it allows them to see all of the potential genders in their one formation, and then they get to be on their gender
yeah,
journey with their chart alongside them, you know. And so this has been really
yeah,
enlightening today. We only have 1 minute, but I just want to say that I hope for anyone listening that you see how complex gender is just even among the signs. And then when we add planets in those signs, you know, if we put Mars in Scorpio, that makes it even more martial, right? And so it like alters the gender of that
right.
Scorpio placement, you know, and like a Venus versus a Venus in Scorpio and things like that. But I mean, hopefully for people listening today, they see how complex the gender of the signs are and how some of the signs are non-gendered or mechanical even. And, you know, so, you know, Jael, this has
Yeah.
been ultimately very enlightening, and I just can't wait to dig in next week with something else. So thank you so much.
Yay. Awesome. Yes, absolutely. All right. See
All
y'all
right.
soon.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.